Well, not the finish that any of us wanted like yesterday, unless you were a Pacers fan, which I don't know any Pacers fans. 130-109 was your final score yesterday. Game 7, the Knicks. Listen, not a good loss. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Bob Walters. We're going to look back at yesterday's Game 7. We'll look ahead to the Knicks season. Nothing crazy here today. Just, a look back. Was it a success? Was it a failure? Stuff like that. I think yesterday the Knicks, they finally just kind of succumbed to all the injuries. It just finally became too much to handle, and you got Brunson go down with a broken hand. So even if they would have pulled that out, I mean, they weren't going to beat the Celtics probably full strength, but especially if with Brunson with a broken hand, it just wasn't going to happen. And you had Hartenstein go down early with a back injury. You had DiVincenzo, who was hot. I think they didn't go to DiVincenzo enough in the game, but I don't think that would have mattered either, because the way the Pacers played and the way the Pacers shot, I believe they set the record for all-time field goal percentage in a single game, in a playoff game, 67.1%. They were just hitting everything. Everything was going down from three, and it was a little bit reminiscent of Game 6, where they stretched out an early lead. It didn't get as big as it did in Game 6, like 30 points, but the Knicks were down 15 in that first quarter, and there was really just nothing they could do. I mean, they didn't play well. They were shorthanded already. You got, Burks was excellent. Burks was their best player yesterday, and if Burks is your best player in a playoff game or in a playoff series or in a Game 7, you're not going to win. Burks is a nice little player, but he can't be your best player on the court for a game and expect to win against any playoff team. And that's what happened yesterday. The Knicks, they made mistakes. They did turn the ball over. They were missing easy shots. They got destroyed on points in the paint. They didn't rebound as well. And with Hartenstein, when he got hurt, that took away a lot of the rebounding that the Knicks were able to do. And it didn't work out for the Knicks, and it was disappointing. Don't get me wrong, it was definitely disappointing, but it wasn't, is the season a failure? I don't think so. I think this was a good season. I think they gave us a run that wasn't really expected, and I think, they're going to be back next year. And it sucks if you paid, $700 to go see the game, and you saw that because you didn't even really get the Knicks, and we really didn't get any of the Knicks in this playoff run. Right? They were injured throughout the whole thing. You had no Randall. You didn't have Randall at all, basically, for the last 2 months of the season, because he went down, and then they finally said he's done. He shut him down for the season in that last week of the season. Then OG went down in the first series. Bogdanovich went down. Mitchell went down. It was kind of a half a team. So is it a built-in excuse? Yeah, I guess it is a built-in excuse. For the Knicks, it is at least. But is it going to be? Is it something? They're not using it as an excuse. When they asked Brunson, he shied away from it. He had a broken hand. He hurt his foot earlier in the series, and it's something that it sucks, because it was a good run. We were having a good time with it. Was the Rangers and the Knicks and the Rangers and the Knicks, and they were talking about '94 and everything like that, and it was fun. And now it comes to a screeching halt in a series that you thought you were going to win. You really thought the Knicks would win this series. I had picked them in 5 games. Silly me. And it was a very even series. I think it wasn't as even as the other series against the Sixers. I know that only went 6 games, but this one there was a bunch of blowouts. Game 4, Game 5, and Game 6 were all blowouts. So it wasn't as close, and the dramatic finishes that the Knicks had against the Sixers, and that was a great series. And it gave a whole nother generation a look at what Madison Square Garden really can be when it's rocking in the springtime. And that's pretty cool, because up until this point, even the guys that are playing had never really seen the Garden like that. And you got it every night. Knicks, Rangers, Knicks, Rangers. You had Rangers at the Knicks games, Knicks at the Rangers games. And it was just an every night thing, and that's how it was. So now when we talk about the 90s, the people who are under 40 years old will now understand, because they have their own reference, and they could talk about it about this year. About the series against the great series against Philadelphia, and how they won that game in 6 games and the wild finish in game 2 with DiVincenzo hitting a shot and everything like that. It's fantastic. So they have something now to reference that. It's not just, the old guys talking about the 90s, about the old times when the Garden used to be good. It's really they experienced it. And I think that helps. That's something that's good for New York and something that's good for people to experience, because now they understand why it's the Mecca and why it's called the world's most famous arena. But it sucks that they lost, and the way they went out, I don't think Indiana's a much deeper team than the Knicks. The Knicks have not really much depth, and that's what Thibodeau does. He doesn't really go deep into his bench, but you saw it kind of came back to bite him in this series, because if you don't go deep in your bench and you lose 2 guys to injury, now all of a sudden you're in big trouble. And that's what happened. And the Knicks lost people that they couldn't lose, as far as, Randall, they got used to playing without Randall. It's because they played without Randall for 2 months. So that's okay. But as far as when OG went down, that was a huge loss. Now, he came back yesterday and he tried to give it a go, right? He had 2 shots. It looked like, okay, here we go. OG's back. And then he came up limp with the hamstring. And then that's what a hamstring does. A lot of times the hamstring is just going to, it's 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring, even with a strain or a sore, or whatever it was that he had. It could be 4 to 6 weeks, and then you get timid on it, and you favor the other leg, and you end up getting hurt there. And the Knicks just couldn't compete yesterday. They didn't have the personnel to compete. You had Burks and you had DiVincenzo, and besides that, they really didn't have anything. Hart was playing with the abdominal thing. He obviously was not himself yesterday, because we've seen him himself throughout the whole playoffs, and that was not the Josh Hart that we watched for the last month in these playoffs. He's the energy of the team, no pun intended. He's the heart of the team, because he's just high energy. He plays every minute. He goes up and down the court. He grabs rebounds. He's not a great shooter, but he does everything else. He's a facilitator, and with him with Brunson, So now are the Knicks? Are they going to be able to compete with this team going forward? It's tough to say, because we didn't really see the Knicks team in the playoffs, right? We didn't see it. We didn't see Randall, OG, and Brunson, which is our, the Knicks version of the big 3. We didn't see them play together. And OG is constantly hurt. Ever since he came here at the trade deadline, he's basically been injured. He played stints here and there, back a couple games, and then he'd get hurt, and he was out. Him and Randall were out together for the longest time. Do you want that back? Do you want to run it back with this same team? Do you want to go after a superstar? These are all questions that they're going to have to ask now, and it starts today. Thibodeau, they got, Dolan stayed out of it, right? He didn't stick his nose in it and screw it up this time. They got the front office that seems to know what they're doing for the first time in a long time. They got the head coach who gets everything out of these players, and these players would run through a wall for him. So you're good there. And you got Brunson, who is now you could almost call a superstar. And then you got OG, who's a great all-around player, but when he plays. And the same goes for Randall. Now, do you want Randall back? Do you not want Randall back? That's a big question. Where do they go from here? Do they go after a superstar? Do they go after maybe a Donovan Mitchell or a Booker to complement Brunson? Is that something that you want to do? Do you want to mess with the chemistry? Now, everyone today is going to say, run it back, same team. We could do this. You can't, though. Because Hartenstein's probably leaving anyway. So are you going to sign him? Because he's going to look for a lot of money. Okay. 2, I don't think this team was good enough. They were going to go into the Celtics series. Let's say they won. Hypothetically, they won yesterday. They were going to go into the Celtics series even full strength, and they were going to lose. And I think Indiana's going to lose it real quick. But if you add Donovan Mitchell to this team, or you add Devin Booker to this team, now you're talking. Maybe you have a chance. Maybe you could go up against Tatum, and you could compete against the Celtics, and you could possibly win the championship. Look at Minnesota, right? They knocked out Denver last night in Game 7. They were down 20 points in the third quarter. That's just what the Knicks were. Knicks were down 20 points in the third quarter, but we had no chance. And we were sitting there with no chance. We knew we had no chance. But they had Edwards, and Edwards brought them back, and they ended up winning by 8 and stunned the defending champs and knocked them out. They won 3 games on the court of the defending champs in the playoff series. So is Randall and OG and the Nova Knicks and Hartenstein, with Hart and with DiVincenzo, is that enough? It's not. DiVincenzo's a nice shooter. He's hot and cold. He's certainly not a great shooter. Randall, I'd never really liked Randall. Randall's a good player, but you obviously Brunson and OG. They got to figure out how to. Anunoby's got to stay on the court because he's a big part of this team, and he contributes, and he does. The team lifts the team when he plays, but he doesn't play. So you're gonna pay him. Now you got Hartenstein, who's going to be looking for big money because he was excellent in these playoffs. Now, do you pay him? Probably not. So now you're going to need another big guy. There's a lot of things going on here and a lot of questions that need to be answered. And like I said, Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell are out there. I would like Donovan Mitchell, but I don't know if Donovan Mitchell's going to want the ball because he's going to come here and he's going to be the 2 to Brunson, who's going to be the point guard. Right? Brunson's the point guard. So that's what it is. The question is Mitchell, would he come here and he accepted, not handling the ball, not being the main guy, bringing the ball up the court, calling the plays and everything run through him? Is there going to be an issue there? So a lot of questions going forward. But as far as everything else goes, was it a success or a failure this season? I would say it's a success. I'd say you're taking steps. I know they didn't get further than they did last year or the year before. They didn't make it to that conference final spot where they usually did, which would be a step up from where they've been. But this one felt a little different. It felt a little different than what they've been doing in the last couple of years, right? They went in, they lost in the first round, and then they won. They lost to Atlanta. This one felt a little different. And it's more disappointing because you feel like they should have won. And they should have won. They're a better team when everybody's healthy than Indiana. Indiana's the 6th seed. You got the 6th seed now going to the conference finals. You were you want to look at it as the Knicks and the underdog story and everything. They were the 2 seed. And then they got beat by the 6th seed. So, it's not really the underdog story is the Pacers. And they were fantastic yesterday. They shot the lights out. They came that close to running the Knicks out of the gym in the first half. 2 straight games, they had 15-point leads in the first quarter. So they took advantage of an unmanned Knicks team, a Knicks team that was limping into the game, and who got even more injured when the game started. Once Hartenstein went down, they couldn't do anything in the paint. They couldn't do anything on the boards. You had DiVincenzo hitting shots, and that's all fine and good. But then they kind of went. Then all they have to do, the Pacers, is take away DiVincenzo, and they did that. And give Burks credit. Burks he played excellent for somebody who played 1 minute in the last month of the season to come in these couple games that he played, and the contribution he had. He was their best player yesterday in a game 7. But like I said, if Burks is your best player in a game 7, you're not going to win. You're just not going to win. He's not the kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that he gets his 14, but Brunson gets 35 and Hart grabs 20 rebounds. That's how you win game 7. Not DiVincenzo hitting a couple threes in the first quarter and then Burks is your best player. So there's a lot of decisions the Knicks have to make. Is Jericho Sims going to be on? He doesn't do anything, right? He just warms the bench. Like, what's the point of having him there? And you're going to have to pay him now. You really want to do that? Or you want to find the spot? What do you do with Mitchell Robinson? Mitchell Robinson, another one that's always hurt. So the Knicks have a good team. They got a lot of players, but they got a lot of guys who get hurt. And I think They're going to sign Randall. I don't know if I would sign Randall. I'm not crazy about Randall. I just never have been. You know, he's a good player. He's a nice player. He's an above average player. But if you could get somebody like, you know, Devin Booker or Donovan Mitchell to come in here, and if they're willing to work and they could gel with this team, now you're talking maybe a championship, and you could get a big man too. Because I don't think Hartenstein's another nice player. They got a lot of nice players, and they got Brunson. And, you know, Brunson, he broke his hand yesterday. And he didn't know. There was no excuses. When he was asked, is the season a success? Is it a failure? He said it's a failure because we didn't win the championship. We didn't get close to winning the championship. So you got to respect that. How can you not? And in a way, he's right. But he's also, you know, you also can look at it from the outside and say, you know what, this was a successful season. The Garden hasn't sounded like this. The Garden hasn't been like this in 25 years. I said they've had 2 games. The 2 biggest games at Madison Square Garden in the last 25 years happened this week. And that's why it's a successful season. They won one of them. They lost one of them. Okay, you live and you move on. You know, only one team can win the championship. And it wasn't going to be the Knicks anyway this year. A lot of people were asking, would you rather win yesterday and get swept by the Celtics or lose yesterday and not get, you know, not have to deal with getting swept? And the answer is you'd rather win yesterday, right? Get to the conference final. Because you don't think you're going to get swept. You think you have a puncher's chance. But even if they won, I mean, Brunson out, forget it. They wouldn't have stayed a chance. And I think Indiana has depth, but they don't have the talent, anywhere near the talent, to match the Celtics. And remember, they were down 0-2 in the series. So kudos to the Pacers for coming back in a series. You know, you had Carlisle, who kind of spewed off about the refs and the small market team and everything. He went crazy with that. And it worked. He got his team, motivated his team, and they won the games they needed to win. They won all 3 at home, and then they stole Game 7. And now they are going on to the Eastern Conference Finals. So a lot of questions for the Knicks going forward. You have your core. DiVincenzo, Hart, Brunson, Randall, question mark. OG, question mark. If you're going to replace them, you better replace them with somebody better. Maybe I think the Knicks will run it back with Randall. I think Hartenstein's probably gone, and he would, you know, thank you to Hartenstein. But, you know, it was a fun run. It was fun while it lasted. We knew it was going to come to an end before, you know, a trophy was raised at the Garden. Not this year, but they're close. They're close, right? Closer than they've been in most of the people listening's lives. So finally, we do have a basketball team, and you see what basketball is to New York City. And it is a different type of city when the Knicks are winning and when the Knicks are good and they're relevant and they're playing in the spring and everything like that. So, but don't forget, we do still have one of the tenants at the Garden still going, favored to win the Stanley Cup, and that's the New York Rangers. And they start Wednesday, Friday for the Rangers. Knicks, we'll see you next year. We'll see you in October. But for the Rangers, Wednesday, Friday, games 1 and 2, Madison Square Garden. We will have a preview of that tomorrow. And listen, it's going to be a good time. So the Knicks, again, they lose game 7 to the Indiana Pacers, 130-109. The season comes to an end. It was a successful season. It was good. It was fun. The Garden was rocking again. It was good to see that building the way it's supposed to be, which is the best building in America. So thanks for listening, everybody. Till next year with the Knicks. We'll be back, though, tomorrow with the Rangers. We preview the Rangers and the Florida Panthers Eastern Conference Final, Game 1 Wednesday. And we have Scott Ojera, the author of the Sports Phone book, 976-1313. He's coming on Saturday. I'm also working on a Mets guest for this week during the week. You got me for another week before I go back to work. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Bob Walters. See ya.